Would you like to know how to meet and collaborate with high-end partners at networking events? If so, you'll want to listen in as Brady Patterson, the Director of Strategic Partnerships, shares how to build a solid referral network for your business, where to find those partners, and how to generate 6 and even 7 figures through cultivating authentic relationships.
Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Wiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less to build your business. Today, our guest is Brady Patterson, and he's a multiple best-selling author, a survival trainer, and an international rodeo champion. He's helped grow the Entrepreneur International Network from 10,000 members in 4 cities to over 120,000 members in 31 cities and 5 countries. Currently, he's the Director of Strategic Partnership of the #1 joint venture network for coaches, consultants, where he teaches entrepreneurs how to build a solid referral network for their business, where to find those partners, and how to generate 6 and even 7 figures through cultivating authentic relationships. Welcome, Brady. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here, Cindy. Thank you.
Definitely our pleasure. I'm so interested and so excited to talk with you, for you to share all of the wisdom you have with us. And before we start talking about building authentic relationships with other people to build our business, can you share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success?
Absolutely. So for me, probably the biggest challenge that I've had to overcome is going remote. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, most of us work from home, and that can, or not most of us, most consultants or coaches, a lot of people in that space can oftentimes end up working from home.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you work from home is, honey wants to bring supper or make coffee, or the kids want to play, or the dog needs walking, or the cat needs petting, or there's always something going on. And having the ability to be able to structure my time in a way that I can actually accomplish my tasks and get through, like, that was a major business challenge, because I came from a more not traditional business, but I had business hours. I'd go into the office, I would do things. But when I got into this space, it was such an interesting difference, because for the first time, it was easy to get swayed by those things, right? It's like, oh, well, actually, I want to go dig in the garden, or I want to go work on this project, or there was always something vying for my attention in my home. And it was just deciding one day, and like, just to give context, my wife and I live in a tiny home. So we have 342 square feet. And it makes it very, very challenging to navigate each other. And we both run businesses from this place. And so it's definitely an interesting, having to learn how to operate, not just independently within my home, but also interdependently, where she has her own business, I have my own business, and we have to find ways to collaborate and use our space in a way that actually helps us both at the same time.
Wow, and that's so interesting. Yeah, I've seen tiny homes on TV. I don't think I'd ever want to be in a tiny home, so I hand it to you. And especially with both of you running your businesses out of it, I can imagine that took a lot of understanding and learning, and just doing, again, as you said earlier, doing business a little bit differently than if you're in a big office somewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of systems and a lot of processes I can put in place. And that's probably the #1 piece. Actually, if I was really to look at it and break it down, it's not the challenge of finding out how to use my own workspace. The challenge is finding all the systems to put in place that work for me.
Right.
That was probably the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, completely. Systems is where it's at. Whenever you have the right system that aligns with you, it's so much easier for you to build your business and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so moving on a little bit now, we talked about creating authentic relationships. So how and why should people be creating authentic relationships that will build their business?
Probably the number one thing is if you're not building authentic, real relationships, then what's the point? I mean, if you don't build a real relationship, then you can't call that person last minute and be like, "Hey, I need help promoting this," or or they can't call you and you would listen to them, right? Like I've had JV partners, for example, call at 11 o'clock at night and be like, "Hey, I need help. I need an email to go out tomorrow morning. Do you have any? Can you make something happen for your list? I don't care if it's 100 people. I need to test something now." And I'm able to do that because we have a real relationship. We know each other's families. We know each other's, we don't have kids, but I know their kids and their pets. And we've built time together and we have a real relationship. Otherwise, you get lost in kind of that space of being in the internet marketing space anyway, you're kind of like an affiliate marketer. And there's nothing wrong with affiliate marketing. It's just a different relationship than a JV marketing relationship where one promotes for money and the other one promotes because of the relationship.
And so just back up just a little bit, because I know sometimes, and I used to think this myself too, whenever I'd hear create authentic relationships, I was always thinking about creating it with my potential clients. And so we're talking about creating authentic relationships with potential partners. So can you explain a little bit what the difference is between quote unquote a JV partner and an affiliate partner?
Sure. And by the way, both are relevant. So it has to, I think that everything starts from the top and works its way down. So I think partner first and then client comes after, because if you don't have relationships with your clients or your partners, then as you bring them down and you meet their clients, you don't end up having a real relationship with them, and then it all falls apart. So from my definition, there's an affiliate and a joint venture, and they can be used interchangeably a lot. From a strictly legal perspective, we're mostly affiliates, right? I mean, ultimately, but I define an affiliate as someone that promotes somebody else for money, and that's the relationship. Mm-hmm. And they can be friends, and they can, that's fine, but that's typically what happens. So those people there's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of those things happen. They can be very profitable, productive, and real relationships. They can be very authentic, but they're just a very oftentimes one-sided type of relationship. And then other than friendship, right? For business, it's usually just one way. Mm-hmm. But when you get into start doing joint ventures, a joint venture is it's two people working together it's a venture as a team. You're working together to create a specific outcome. And usually it has an affiliate component because technically, I'm their affiliate and they're my affiliate, right? And we're promoting back and forth. But because we have that relationship, I term it, or I refer to it as a joint venture, because it is us working together. It's not the problem with going into straight affiliate stuff is a lot of times you get into this kind of tit for tat thing where it's like you promote me, I promote you, or I'll only promote you if you promote me. And if you don't have a real relationship built, you can actually fall into that trap really, really easily, because then your brain kind of shuts off when you're thinking about doing a deal with somebody. And instead of being like, well, you promote, looking for solutions, your brain goes to, well, it has to look this way and it can't look any other way, right? Whereas a joint venture would be like, well, maybe you promote my webinar to your tribe, but maybe our lists aren't a match. Maybe our audiences don't match each other both directions, but only really one way. And I have several partners that are like that, where our audience loves their stuff, but their audience does not like ours, right? And so it becomes like, okay, what else can we do together? And if you have a joint venture partner, if you have a relationship, you can figure out, well, maybe they have a stage they can put you on. Maybe they have a podcast that I could speak on. Maybe there's different areas that you can work on. And if you're only focused on that one area, the one piece, then it makes it very challenging.
Right. And even with creating these partners, what are you looking for in a partner? So if you're in health, are you just looking for other health people, or how can the different niches even intertwine with each other to support and joint venture with one another?
We opened the door with that one. So, so most people, ideally you're going to talk to your audience. And ideally, the person you're speaking to has your audience. That would be the highest and best use of your time. However, most people, this is the problem. Most people stop there. They're like, hi, Cindy, who's your audience? And then if there's no match, then they stop. But the thing is, they stop too early, because just because you don't have their audience doesn't mean you don't know 2, 3, 10, 20 people. If somebody comes to me, like I normally deal with coaches, consultants, speakers, and authors, right? I mean, I work with an expert base of entrepreneurs. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I have a list of productivity people that want productivity training, I'm like, well, I'm not the guy to do productivity training. My audience may like that, but it's hard to say, right? And I'm not going to present to their audience, right? But if I stop there, that relationship is dead. In what I do instead is I look at, okay, well, I don't have that audience, but I know 2, 3, 4, 5 people that are good matches for you. Would you like introductions to them? Sure, tell me about that. And we start exploring more conversation and finding out more. And then, because it's all about getting to know that person in front of you. And if you stop at them, then that relationship kind of dies in its tracks, or it becomes very, a very narrow window that, well, if this person, if somebody needs this, then I'll go to that person. Whereas like when I pull out my Rolodex, I mean, I guess people don't say Rolodex anymore, but if I look through my contacts and I look for, I have like okay, no, it's not hundreds. It's thousands of people that I can refer to that are doing different things. They might be in health. They might be in wellness. They might be in productivity. They might be in TV. They might be in radio or like, it doesn't, like, I have so many different areas that I can refer people to. And, it's provided me, it's one of the things that helped me escalate very, very quickly in this industry. It's because I never stopped at the person right in front of me. I always looked for, okay, well, who's standing behind them?
Right. And what's so important about looking about who's standing behind them is simply whenever you help them find what they need, you're going to be top of mind when they hear of somebody looking for what you offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what do you think, how do people even go up and connect with somebody? A lot of times people go to networking events and they might talk a little bit about their business, or they always have their elevator pitch. And most of us, the elevator pitch really doesn't work I don't personally believe, networking events as well as anybody else. So what's a good way to approach people, especially if you may be starting out and you are starting to approach people that you can joint venture with? What are some of the best ways to approach them?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing to remember, and you're right, by the way, most people don't know how to network correctly. And that makes it very, very challenging because they think they're there to have small talk and talk about the weather and spew all over people about their business. But that's not really, like, people don't care. They're just like, most people's attitude is, how do I give you my business card fast enough to get away? Mm-hmm. Right. And then they're like, yes, I got a business card out. But like, I don't even have business cards anymore because I know, first of all, nobody followed up. And so I learned that I had to follow up. But then one of the biggest things for me around going to networking and using it was just having a very effective target in mind when I spoke up. I love to be the person that stands up in the room and says something, because it's one of the most effective ways to get the message across. So let's say I'm looking for more speaking opportunities to authors. Right? Maybe like authors, maybe let's pick a narrow niche. And it's good to pick something narrow when you're targeted, because then you can kind of cut through all the noise. If you market to everybody with skin, nobody answers, right? So you got to talk to specific people. So let's say I want to talk to an author or a group of authors. I'll literally be like, hi, my name's Brady Patterson with the Joint Venture Insider Circle. Raise your hand. First, as we're in a networking room, right? Raise your hand if you have a network of authors. That's it. Everybody raise their hand. Perfect. I know who they are. And then at the first opportunity, I go over and follow up with them. Right. If it's same thing, and I'm methodical every time I go to a networking event. It's the same thing. I'll go into one and I'll go to the same events, but every week, and I'll ask a different question, and usually on repeat. Like the first week will be authors. The second week might be coaches. Who in here has a network of coaches or knows somebody with a network of coaches? Okay, 5 people put their hand up. Perfect. I follow up with those 5 people. Next week I come back. Hey, who in here knows has a list of consultants or knows somebody with a list of consultants? And I follow up those people. I'm very methodical about it, and that's how you maximize networking. Because then you can follow up with them, and then you can get to know the right people in the room instead of spending all the time with people that are just trying to give you stuff or explain their business to you, when both of you could be spending better time talking to the right people.
Right. Exactly. And would you do the same thing if you were speaking from stage? Would you still say, hey, raise your hand? Or would you pass out a paper or form for them to complete if they worked with authors or consultants or coaches or whatever it was that you had stated.
That makes me want to qualify the type of speaking. Why am I standing on stage? Am I selling a product, or is it just an opportunity for me to share with the audience? Because that would be different.
Right. Okay, so if you're just sharing with the audience, then you would probably have the form, and if you were selling something, you would have a form to sell the thing?
Yeah, like I would always, depending on how I'm speaking or what the frame is for me to be up there. Like if I'm at an event, they should know I'm speaking about selling courses, or I'm talking about joint venture networks, or I'm talking about public speaking. They know why I'm there, so it's already framed. And so if I'm there selling, I'm like, raise your hand in the room if you're a coach. Okay, raise your hand in the room if you're an author, and I'll do all of them. Raise your hand if you're a speaker. Raise your hand if you're a trainer, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the targets that I'm aiming for, the specific people that I want to connect with, I will ask them. And usually I'll be able to get most of the room, and then I'll know I'm in the right room, right? Because if at the end of it, only 5% of the people stuck their hands up for anything, then I know I'm in the wrong place, right? And, normally I vet that ahead of time. So I'm not getting up on stage not knowing who's in the room. Right. I should know who's there in the first place, but that would be one way to identify. If I'm just getting up at a networking event because we're introducing ourselves, I'll ask the same question I did a few minutes ago. Or if I'm on stage for a short period of time, and it really just depends on where I'm taking them next. If it's just to go on one-on-one consultations or have a conversation, I will say, raise your hand if you have a speaking business or you're a coaching business. Mm-hmm. Raise your hand if you're speaking coaching business. Okay, perfect, awesome. Come see me at the break. I want people to come to me because it saves me having to chase people down. But then I also try and memorize as many of those people as possible if it's a big room. Mm-hmm. That way, if people don't come to me, I can go find them.
Now, I've been to events, I'm sure you have too, where really you don't have that speaking opportunity, or they may even disallow you from sharing your website or anything if you ask a question to the speaker. So what's the best way to network with other attendees when you don't have that opportunity to stand up and speak?
It depends on your audience. So most of the time, my audience, like if I'm attending an event, it's because all the people in the room are my audience. So I'm not worried about meeting the right person because they're all there. Mm-hmm. If I'm attending an event as an attendee, and it's something I'm just personally interested in, mm-hmm. I'll still figure out how I can network, but then I'll usually, if it's a sponsored type event where there's people with booths and there's other speakers and things like that, I'll just go introduce myself to all the speakers. And that's most of the people I speak to, because I know that they have groups. They have a business that can afford them to be able to pay for something to be able to get more, to generate leads. So they're in that room and they're serious about their business. That doesn't mean that people in the audience aren't serious about it either. It just means that those people paid to be there. So they're looking for lead generation. So I can do business with them right now. And so that saves me a lot of time. And then because the rest of the time, I'm not typically attending events to learn something anymore. When I did go just to learn things, maybe I need to learn how to do a mastermind more appropriately, or I can always improve. And by the way, I'm not saying like I stop learning. I just go for different intents now. Most of the time I go to meet people, and I pick my events much more. I'm very selective about what I go to now. I have like a model. I go to one or two of the same events all the time. So I attend the same, like it's usually, there's one like my friend Jay runs this thing called like a JV type summit twice a year. I go to every single one. That's like the standard event that I attend. And then I leave room for 4 to 6 other events for the rest of the year that are similar. So I pick one area where I can go deep and build the connections, and those have profited and in not just finance, but in personal relationships more than anything else, because I've taken the time to do that. And then I meet other people and can introduce them to those similar communities. So I can, as I'm attending other events, I can bring people in and be like, hey, I've got this other stuff going on too. Like, come with me here, come play with me here. Let's get to know each other better. And that way I've got something that's consistent and something that's uncertain. And it allows me to continue to explore and build more and more connections, but in a sustainable way, because otherwise I just burn out.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to step back again just a moment. You're saying at the events, you'll go up to people that have the booths. So how
Mhm.
do you approach them? What do you say to them for them to get to know who you are and what you offer?
Good question. Well, first thing I do is I always, just to be clear, I always go up on when they're not sitting there with their ideal customer. So usually, like on a break, I'm not the person talking to them. I wait till the session is on, and that way they're trying to come back into the room because they're not typically, their speaker agreement won't allow them to continue to have customer conversations at the back of the room, right? So I'll be like, hey, I'd love to talk to you, find out more about what your business is, and I'm like, can we go out of the room? And I'll approach them just like that. And usually it's very rare that somebody says no. Most people are like, who's this guy and why is he coming to talk to me? This is pretty, let's go. And they'll come out of the room and I'll be like, hey, I saw a little bit of what you did. I saw your introduction, or I was reading the thing on your booth. I creeped you on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, right? I looked a bit about you. I'd love to find out more about the audience that you serve. And if there's any, I personally see synergy between us. And that usually triggers, oh, this is not a client conversation. This is a business like a collaboration.
Right.
And that opens up a lot of doors, because then I'm not trying to steal their clients. I'm not trying to get something from them. I'm just looking to build the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good information. Thank you, Brady. So Brady, can you share a business strategy that our listeners can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build their business?
Absolutely. I would say probably the best way to build your business and implement very quickly. You can actually implement this in every single conversation. It takes less than 15 minutes. Start if you're already booking conversations with other business owners to do collaborations. The thing you need to do is book an hour. So don't look at like having a 20-minute consultation or a 30-minute call. For your first call, it should be a full hour. And there's a framework behind this. It's the same one that I use and I have used very successfully to build, like to literally make hundreds and hundreds of joint venture connections and partnerships. It basically takes 20 minutes for me to understand your business. So I want to have 20 minutes just to have you talk to me about your business and ask questions and dig in. It takes another 20 minutes for me to explain all the different things that I have going on and what's going on in my business and all the little different the pieces, right? And then we have 20 minutes to look for intersections and get to know each other better. Now, if we run out of time, that's okay. We can always book another session, but you always make sure that you do that before you get off the call. But that last 20 minutes, I've had conversations that for 18 minutes we talked about this and we could not find a connection. We just couldn't find something that worked together to collaborate on. And then 2 minutes before the end of the call, somebody says something about this thing way off in the distance that they're like, well, I have this charity that I sponsor around this, around oceans or something like that, right? And I'd be like, oh my gosh, really? Well, tell me more about that. And we start diving into that piece. And then maybe we end up having the flexibility to have a longer call and continue to find out. And we find out that, they have this project or this ocean charity that helps remove plastic, cleans out plastic and something, right? And then I was like, okay, well, I know somebody that has a charity that does something similar, and they happen to be a client, and we start looking for that one thing that never would have come into the conversation, only came about because we gave ourselves the time to explore. Mm-hmm. And that exploration is very, very important. And there's times where I end up having a conversation and we get off and I'm like, there's nothing. And then, 6 months later we talk and we have that similar conversation. And all of a sudden we start talking about puppies, and they're puppy and they used to they rescued in Mexico and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, my wife and I used to rescue pups in Mexico. We brought back, like all this. And then we start diving in and exploring more. And the more conversation you can get into with the right kind of person, the more it opens up that opportunity for business. So if you can get in this phone call in less than 15 minutes, you can, as soon as you meet somebody, you have a window to book that follow-up call. I try to book a call with somebody within 15 minutes. And while I'm sitting there at an event, like I was saying, I'll use the example I gave. I'll take somebody out of the room, be like, hey, can we have a quick meeting? We talk for 2 or 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And if we have time, I'll sit down with them right then and there. And I'll actually book a promotion if we find room for it. But if not, I book the phone call right then and there. And that's just something that gets missed a lot. People don't book the next follow-up before they leave the current thing. And that's always critical. So whether you're booking a follow-up conversation or you're booking a promotion, it should be done while you're still in the middle of the thing that you're doing at that point.
Mm-hmm. And that's the critical, I think, step is the follow-up. Is so many people, they have the connections and there's no follow-up.
Yeah,
And
that happens a lot.
Yeah, and so the way to build the authentic relationship that's really going to help you build your 6 and 7 figure business is simply being the person to follow up.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. And Brady, I know that you have a gift for us. Can you share a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, I was thinking about what to do because I know that you wanted us to take some do something unique for your audience, and so I've got something really fun for you. So we have a deep dive training on how to actually do this, right? How to connect and collaborate with other industry leaders, right? How to get into different places, different spaces, meet new people, and find out how you can actually take these things to the next level. So we have a training called How to Connect and Collaborate with Industry Leaders. It takes about 45 to 60 minutes, somewhere in that range. I can't remember exact timing on the training, but during that training, we talk about how you can connect with other industry leaders and how they can promote you to their list of clients, right? So basically how you can get your competition to send you clients, right? How you can get booked on, the best types of shows, like how you could get booked on shows like with Cindy, right? Things like that, all the different podcasts that are available. You can list your name on as part of our gift. You can list your name in a private directory that showcases your knowledge and your expertise, right? So we have that as part of this training, and I want to make sure that this is not like fluff. This is very targeted. Like, how do you find the best people you need to be working with, right? How do you get access to them? How do you get them to promote you? And I'm pretty sure I sent you the link to make sure that they get that. And if they register for that, training, they can watch it, and it'll give them a very clear picture of the framework. It'll talk about some of the things that I talked about today, like as far as the connection strategies, but it also talks about some of the best promotional opportunities out there and how they can actually utilize them in their business.
And that's so important. I know that's how I built my business, is through joint ventures and collaborating with other people. And it's definitely making the relationships. And once you have that relationship, it's very interesting how things just start building on top. You build up momentum. The momentum just starts going with the relationships that you build. Absolutely. Yeah. And so to our listeners, you want to head on over to Biz Success in 15. That's BIZ Success IN, the number 15.com /Brady, all lowercase, BRADY. BizSuccessin15.com /Brady. And grab, go ahead and click through and watch the training about how to connect and collaborate with industry leaders. So Brady, did you have any parting words for us? Parting words.
I would say that in parting, follow up. Be that don't be the person that drops things. Like, actually start putting this in place now. This is like the best time in the planet, in history, for you to start reaching out to people and start following up those activities. Like, you can do many, many, many things, especially technology related, in minutes. What you cannot do is marketing and follow up. That takes time. So you need to start now rather than later. So just get into your follow up and start doing it.
Right. I love it. Thank you very much for being our guest today, Brady. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, feel free to share it with your friends. And you want to hop on over to bizsuccessin15.com /Brady. You'll find all links from today's show. You'll be able to re-listen to Brady's words of wisdom, and you can catch up on past episodes. While you're there, be sure to grab your access to the free training of how to connect and collaborate with industry leaders. So I hope you have a great week, and be sure to tune in next week for another great episode. Big hugs.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show, and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.